Here we are in tutorial number 3. And contrary to what the end of the previous video said, that gateway was actually mislabeled. It's not robot wiring next, because that's actually what we just did. The next one is sensors, not what robot wiring. Sensors. Sometimes in Robotropolis, you will want your robot to detect certain objects. For example, you might want your robot to home in on an energy crystal and pick it up for you. Robots use special detectors called sensors to locate objects. You'll learn about them here. All right, let's learn about them. There are 3 types of sensors in Robotropolis. These sensors will help you and the robots find various objects. This first one here is directional. It just activates one of the outputs based on which direction the object is. This one just activates if it's in the same room as the robot, and this last one it activates if it's in contact with the robot, if the robot itself is in contact with whatever it is that it's sensing. Or I guess the sensor itself actually could be doing it, but usually you hook it up to the robot. This is a contact sensor. If it detects objects that touch it, place the energy crystal on the sensor. What happens when you let go? Make sure the remote control is on. So let's head on up over there. And oh, look at that! That was a touch sensor. So when the energy crystal touched the sensor, it caused the output to activate. When we pick it back up, it no longer is activated. Activated, not activated. All right. Sensors only detect objects that are not being held. Take the sensor with you. So we'll just leave the energy crystal and take the sensor. Carry the sensor into scanner, connect a wire from the sensor output to the antenna input, and come back outside. So we want to connect this thing to the antenna input. We'll show off the rotation here. So if you, the circular, it's like a recycling icon or something. It's arrows going around in a circle. If you press it on most objects that you carry can be rotated. So in this case, it was more convenient to have this rotated to the left, so that's what we did. So let's wire this thing up. So did it say it said antenna output? I think so the output of this sensor to the antenna. So whenever the robot touches an energy crystal, it will activate the antenna. Drop the crystal on the scanner's body. When a contact sensor is inside a robot, it detects the objects that touch the robot's body. So you see here, there you go. When it touches it, it activates it. Take scanner with you. The contact sensor is on because the crystal is touching it. Turn the remote control off to freeze electricity. Move the crystal. The sensors work only if the remote control is on. So see, this thing is still orange, and the scanner hasn't beeped because the remote control is not on. It just keeps that state until we do the remote control and it starts working again. So turn the remote control on and off. Electricity in the sensor inside the scanner is frozen unless the remote control is on. Take the scanner with you. See, there you go. See this touch thing deactivated because it wasn't being touched, but this one activated. So take scanner. This is a contact sensor. This contact sensor is shaped like a triangle. It detects triangles that touch it. Sensors detect objects that detect the object shape. The wording on that is a little odd. Sensors detect objects that detect the object shape. Anyway, the sensors detect the object based on the shape. Can you rewire scanner to beep when a triangle touches it? Leave scanner here. Of course we can. It's trivial. Go in here. And all we need to do is make the thing connect to a different one. So there you go. Stupid. Okay, so the when it touches a triangle, it will activate the remote. Anyway, so I mean you can easily see it if you just bring it over here. Let's activate the remote, and then there you go. So when it touches a triangle, so leave scanner here. This is an in-same room sensor. It detects objects in the same room with it. Since the sensor has a square shape, it detects squares. So this looks a little misleading because it just looks like a square inside of a square, but um, uh, the square inside here could be a triangle or a power crystal or whatever. But the point is that when you have an object that on a sensor and it has another square around it, that means it's a room sensor instead of a touch sensor. It's easy to remember. You just go back to the first room earlier in this tutorial where you can see the 3 different types of sensors. Uh, yeah, so it is this square is now on because there is a square in the room. So if you take this sensor with you into the next room, presumably it will no longer be on. Yep, there you go. The sensor is no longer on. The arrow thing there is white because the square is in the other room. Now the sensor is off since there is no square in the room. Go back and bring the square into this room, drop the square, and now the sensor is on. And there we go. Remember that sensors can't detect an object you are holding. Take the sensor with you. Put the sensor inside checkers and wire it to the antenna. Now go back and get the square. Well, let's do that first. Wire it to the antenna. Oh. All right. Checkers will beep when you drop the square. When in an in-same room sensor is inside an object, it detects objects in the same room as the robot. So let's pick this up, and if we drop it into this room, it should start beeping. There you go. So check checkers with you. This is a directional sensor. It detects the direction of an object in the same room. Pick up the sensor and move around the token. Outputs pointing in the direction of the token turn on. Put the sensor and the token inside checkers and carry the robot with you. So we just pick it up. Now notice the bottom and left are orange, but if we go down here, we have to have the remote on. So when we move down, it's up and left, it's up and right, and down and right. So yeah, it senses, and it's just left right now. See, so it senses the direction of the thing. We're supposed to bring both of it with us. All right, so bring checkers with us. You can use the directional sensor to make checkers home in on the token. Go inside checkers and connect a wire from the robot's right sensor to the left pointing output of the sensor. So go inside checkers and connect a wire from the robot's right thruster, A, to the left pointing output of the sensor. So that means that if you can't, I don't think you can rotate that because then you wouldn't know which way was up on this thing. So let me try it. Yeah, you can't rotate directional sensor. So if we want to wire up this one to the left side, which means that when we sense the 5 token to the left of the robot, it will cause the right thruster to activate, which will move the robot to the left. So take the token out of checkers and drop it left of the robot. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Checkers moves left until it's even with the token. Take checkers with you. Complete the wiring as follows. Left thruster to right pointing sensor, top thruster to bottom output, and bottom thruster to top output. So basically, uh, we want to move the robot in the direction of whatever it is that we're sensing. So if we want to, if it's below us, that means we want to move down, which means we go to this sensor. Oops. Yeah, jump the gun there. And if we want to move up, if it's above us, we want to move up, which means we wire it to this thruster. And lastly, if we want to go right, if it's to the side of us, we want to wire it to this thruster. Oh, wait. Experiment by dropping the token in various parts of the room. Watch checkers home in on it. Put the token inside checkers and take the robot with you. It didn't actually tell us to bring the token with us, so I didn't. But let us go ahead and do that. So if I put it here, and if I put it over here, it's coming up here. Oh, you can't catch me. Over here. Nope. It's coming on over here. Woo! Put the token inside checkers and bring the bot with you. Oops. Gotta deactivate, otherwise it'll keep chasing me. Ah! It's chaos. Alright. Now you'll see how to use the homing robot circuit to grab an object. First, you need to activate the grabber. Use the in-same room sensor inside checkers. First, disconnect the sensor from the antenna, and then wire the sensor to the grabber control input. I should probably shorten the swiping distance because I found that sometimes I don't swipe far enough. So I want to, what did it say? We want to wire to the grabber. So all right, so now we have wired the output of the same room sensor with the grabber. So if it detects the square in the same room, it will enable the grabber. Because this is a square in this room, the grabber control is on. See, we go in here, activate the remote, and yes, you can see here that the grabber control has been activated. Now bring this token outside of checkers. Checkers will home in on it and grab it. Take checkers into the next room. So they're saying take this token. See, it homed in on it and grabbed it because this thing up here was being sensed, which enabled the grabber to be activated, but the movement was actually homing in on the 5 token thing. Now bring checkers to the next room. Oh, it dropped it. What happened when checkers came into this room? Since there is no square in this room, the sensor connected to the grabber control turned off and checkers dropped the token. It doesn't say what to do, whether we should keep moving or not, so apparently we don't actually need checkers now. The directional sensor is pointing toward the triangle. Since there is a square in the room, checkers grabber is on. Apparently we were supposed to bring grabber. All right. Let checkers grab the triangle. All right. Okay, it grabbed the triangle. Now the directional sensor is off. The sensors can't detect an object that a robot is holding. So you saw over here that this thing detects triangles, and the left side was orange, but now it's white. So the directional sensor is off. Sensors can't detect an object that a robot is holding. Take the sensor with you. Now the square they were talking about was the square in the upper right, this one here. This is a shape editor. Use it to change the shape of an object. Press the directional sensor over it to change it from a triangle sensor to a square sensor. So if you see here, it's currently a triangle. So if we move over here, boom, voila, it magicked this thing into a square sensor. So this will be a directional sensor for a square. You can verify that it senses squares by taking it to the previous room. There's a sensor editor in the town of Robotropolis, and there are several in the Innovation Lab. So in various parts of the game and in the Innovation Lab. The Innovation Lab is the thing that allows you to create circuits and stuff on your own and then reuse them in different parts of the game so that you don't actually have to redo the same work over and over again. You can actually work in the Innovation Lab, create some circuits that you use regularly, and then just load those circuits up inside the game. Anyway, you can see this thing is pointing up and right because there is a square to the upper and right. Now it's just to the right. So even though it was a triangle thing before, now it's a square sensor. Sensors are very useful. There are just 3 things to remember about them. Sensors can't detect an object that you or a robot are holding. The object must have the same shape as the sensor to be detected, and the remote control must be on. There are lots of sensors and shape editors in the Innovation Lab. You might want to go there and just experiment with the sensors. Before you continue to Robotropolis, you will find it helpful to learn about the toolkit and some robot circuits. Then you will be ready for hours of fun in the subway and town. And here we are at the end of this tutorial. So next tutorial I will do learning about the toolkit.